Hello, I'm Joe Walensky from WritersUA, and I'm speaking with presenters who will be at our event, WritersUA West in Palm Springs, coming up in March. I'm visiting now with John Daigle. Hello, John.
Hi, how are you, Joe?
All right, everything's going well. Where are you speaking to us from?
Well, I'm in my cabin office. People have a home office. Well, I have a cabin office here in Evergreen, Colorado. I'm kind of in the middle of the country because I travel quite a bit and I can go anywhere from here.
All right, great. Well, if you're not familiar with John, he's the president of Evergreen Online Learning. He's been a speaker and a pundit and a long-time contractor, consultant, person in the user assistance field for many years. He's a certified RoboHelp and Adobe Captivate instructor, and he's going to be presenting a couple of sessions at the conference, one of which is easing the aversion to version control. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, John?
Sure. Well, for many years, technical writers, especially those who are on a team, have wanted to use, true version or source control, but a lot of times they're treated as second-class citizens, and it's usually the developers that get that kind of software. So, fortunately, the writers are now been brought into the equation because they need help in keeping things in sync even more than before. So there are a lot more tools available than the more traditional, let's say, Team Foundation Server or Perforce or Subversion or Robo Source Control or anything else. So now we have resources available to us, especially for the writer that isn't so, they don't need all the complexity of keeping track of code so much as keeping track of topics. And of course, teams are now spread around the globe. And so for that reason, what's really become on the radar is a cloud-based way of sharing not only topics, but everything from graphics and style sheets and master pages to multimedia video, which is such a big deal now. So the idea is to explain to folks what the issues are, sort of the pros and cons of a full-blown source control system versus a more minimal approach that gets the job done with this cloud-based synchronization that I'll be talking about. So that's kind of the big news there. And I think in talking to some folks, it's piqued a lot of curiosity, and I think people will be very surprised at what is now possible with things like Dropbox or SkyDrive or Google Drive or whatever you might call it. So that's what I mean by easing the aversion to version control.
Well, that topic of cloud storage continues to be increasing, and we're going to see more and more changes, I think, in software very shortly. And that's also the case with the technology behind your other topic you're going to talk about. The title is Please Don't Squeeze the Layout, Let It Respond. So, what's that all about?
Well, I love to have cute titles. What can I say? So basically, with all of the mobile need these days, from iPads to Samsung's Galaxy and so forth, the devices keep multiplying. The screen sizes are going crazy, and as you well know, it's really tough to keep track of all this. And so, about a year ago, many of the help authoring tools started offering their ways to cope with those changing screen sizes. And what most folks have adopted is a kind of what we call adaptive screen layouts, where they're great. In other words, they'll provide to a specific device. Let's say if I'm going to an iPhone versus an iPad, using things called media queries and styles and some HTML5 coding, you can cope with that and produce these layouts per device. Of course, that means that you have to do a lot of double time work, in terms of crafting for a specific device. So what I'm more interested in and what I mean by let it respond is a technique that allows you to have one uh, layout, basically, we call a responsive layout, so that uh, whatever the device happens to be, it will respond to not only things like the size of an image that needs to become smaller as the screen's smaller, or a table. Tables are a huge issue. So tables that come in and adjust, so they're not only becoming smaller, but the columns start stacking, for example. Or navigational elements. In other words, if you have a TOC or a glossary or a search box, those icons start becoming difficult as well. So these responsive layouts are such that even the navigational elements respond and flow on an iPad. For example, those elements, instead of being at the top or the bottom, are off to the right hand side, so that it makes it more intuitive for the user to not be have all those navigational elements in your face. And of course, also the idea of navigational elements that are good for fat fingers like mine, so that you're always trying to find the place to tap. So anyway, that's what is meant by response. It responds no matter what the device is.
All right, great. Well, thanks for taking a few minutes to talk with us about that, and we'll get all the details and see you in Palm Springs in March.
Great, good to be there, Joe. Thanks a lot.